What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions. Today is July 16th, 2020, and I'm going to do my updated Senate projection video. Right now, I can feel pretty confident in calling 41 seats for the Republicans and 45 seats for the Democrats. And before I get too far into my video, this is the last time I'm going to do this. I'm at 983 subscribers. I just need 17 more to get that magic number of 1,000 subscribers. I'm almost there. I want to do a very, very special video for my 1,000 subscriber special. So please, if you're watching this video and haven't subscribed, just do it. Just do it. Okay, so here we are. This is my Senate projection video. I'm going to try to do these twice a month, just like my presidential videos. So let's just dive right in. Right now, I have Alaska as a likely Republican state. I do think this is going to go towards the Republicans. And I feel comfortable calling this maybe a safe Republican state later, but we haven't seen a lot of polling out of Alaska, and it has demonstrated some streaks where some independent-minded streaks. So the second likely Republican state I see is Kentucky. This is Mitch McConnell's state. A lot of people just don't like Mitch McConnell around the country. I don't think Mitch McConnell could survive in like a swing state like Arizona, like Florida, Iowa, or like Wisconsin. Kentucky is very conservative. However, in 2019, it did elect a Democratic governor. So I'm not going to just call this state a completely safe Republican state. Yet. I do think that the Democratic challenger, Amy McGrath, even though she kind of had a tough primary to go through, I do think she is a fairly good candidate. I still think Mitch McConnell is going to win, but there's going to be a lot of money poured into this race, and Mitch McConnell, frankly, is just not the most inspirational figure. I mean, he calls himself the Grim Reaper, so he's kind of just wears that brand as a badge, even though I don't think it would be a very good national strategy, maybe in Kentucky because it just has more registered Republicans. I could see Mitch McConnell just winning the state maybe by around 10 points. And with President Trump on the ballot, that's for sure going to help Mitch McConnell because Trump is going to campaign for him. Next up is South Carolina. So Lindsey Graham is having a little harder challenge than people realized. Lindsey Graham's still going to win the seat just because it is South Carolina. Part of the Bible Belt, the Solid South. It's going to be pretty conservative. Charles Booker, his opponent, has been polling pretty well. I don't think the Democrats are going to be pouring a lot of money into the state, but this might be one of those states where the Republicans just have to pour some money into where they could put elsewhere. So it might be kind of one of these distraction seats. But Lindsey Graham could very well only win the state between like 5 and 10 points, which is still the likely characterization, but it is a lot. It would be a lot poorer of showing than he's done in the past. Next up is Alabama. Some people only consider Alabama a lean Republican state, but Tommy Tuberville got through the primary pretty well. He beat Jeff Sessions, and I think the Republican Party in Alabama is pretty coalesced around him. I do think Doug Jones is going to put up a good fight. Democrats are going to invest heavily in the state. Doug Jones won once in 2017, but I just don't see him winning again, especially against maybe a more mainstream candidate like Tommy Tuberville. Maybe he's not the strongest candidate. I think Jeff Sessions would have won maybe by a larger margin, but still, I think Tommy Tuberville will win the state. And the last one is Kansas. I don't think Chris Kobach is going to come out of the primary. If Chris Kobach does come out of the primary as the victor, I would characterize the state maybe as a lean or Republican state. But right now, I still have it as a likely Republican state just because Kansas is so Republican. Even though it has a Democratic governor like Kansas, I still consider this a likely Republican state. So next up, we're going to move to the likely Democratic states. I only have one extra one in this column. I consider New Hampshire and Minnesota as likely Democratic states. And this is only because I think with President Trump on the ballot, it's going to make them a little bit closer. But these Democratic incumbents are pretty popular, so I expect them to not have too much trouble winning. Maybe it's within like 10 and 12 points, which considers the likely characterization. But other than that, I don't think we should focus on them that much. Colorado is just going to be interesting because there's a Republican incumbent here in Cory Gardner. He kind of won off of fluke in 2014 when his opponent was very scandal-ridden. But in 6 years, Colorado has transformed a lot. I mean, I don't think Cory Gardner even has a shot. I don't think that the Republican National Committee is even going to invest a lot of money in Colorado because they're just going to accept that they're going to lose. Yeah, I think we'll see similar margins in Alabama and Colorado. So you can kind of compare those with just kind of the opposites in terms of that. So those are the only three likely Democratic states I see. So right now we're at 45, 46. I feel fairly confident in these. So next up, we're going to go to the lean states. So let's start with the Democratic side. So the first states in the lean Democratic side is going to be Arizona. I think Martha McSally has improved in the polls. I don't want to put this state as a likely Democratic state, but I think that Mark Kelly is just a lot better candidate than Martha McSally. I mean, he's a freaking astronaut. I mean, that's pretty good. And he's just more popular overall. And I think he's a more moderate candidate than Kristen Sinema was in 2018. And Kristen Sinema still won by 3 points. I think Mark Kelly's for sure a better candidate. Having President Trump on the ballot, it's going to make it a little closer. I think on the presidential level, this is a pure toss-up. But on the Senate level, I predict Mark Kelly to win the state between 3 and 5 points, which deems the lean characterization. Next up is the state of Michigan. I think Michigan could be a likely Dem state at this point, but I think John James is strong enough of a Republican challenger that we will see this state as a lean Democratic state. John James outperformed the polls in 2018, and I think he could do even better in 2020 because President Trump will make the state even closer. I frankly don't even know who's going to perform better on Election Day, John James or Donald Trump. I mean, the incumbent Democrat in Michigan is not that popular, not really a superstar, but I think that Democrats will settle for him just like some Democrats are settling for Joe Biden. So those are all the lean Democratic states I have right now. So let's move on to the lean Republican states. The first lean Republican state I have is the state of Texas. And before I dive into that, if you haven't subscribed yet and you're watching, I mean, come on. I'm only 17 away. Just get me there. I don't care if you unsubscribe after I get 1,000. I just really want to get 1,000. So thanks. Sorry. So I think that Texas is going to be a lean Republican state. On the presidential level, I had this as a tilt Republican state in my last video. I think I'm going to change that characterization to lean Republican in my next video. John Cornyn has been outperforming Trump in the polls. I think just being an incumbent Republican who is not scandal-ridden and is pretty popular. I think he's going to have that incumbency advantage for sure. The people of Texas know him. But I think he could only win the state by between like 2 and 4 points. I mean, Ted Cruz won the state by 1.5 points in a Democratic wave year. But I think 2020 could look a lot like 2018 just because the Democrats have registered a lot more voters even in that like 1.5, 2 year period. So next up is the Georgia special election. So I know this is pretty interesting. So what's going to happen is Kelly Loeffler is currently the incumbent Republican, and how Georgia works is they do a jungle primary. So Doug Collins, who is a prominent congressman from Georgia, who led who was the defense for Donald Trump in the impeachment trial, he announced that he's going to run for Senate. So it's likely that no one is going to get a majority. The Democrats haven't even consolidated on a candidate. So what's probably going to happen is Doug Collins and whoever the Democratic challenger is, they are going to have their election in December, which is going to be after the election. And I think if Joe Biden wins, that there'll be a lot of Republican energy and that there's going to be a lot more Republicans turning out in December in Georgia than there will be on election day. I think Democrats, there's going to be a turnout machine on November 3rd, which is election day, but not so much afterwards, just because I don't think people really think it matters. And we'll already know who's going to take the majority. If the Democrats have 49 seats and the Republicans have 50, maybe the Democratic turnout machine just could be huge, and we could see this as maybe a tilt Republican state. But I definitely want to see what happens on November 3rd, then I can make a more accurate prediction. So now we're going to move to the tilt states, and we're going to start with the tilt Republican states. So the normal Georgia seat at large that David Perdue is trying to keep, I think this will be a tilt state. I mean, Georgia, the polls that have been coming out have demonstrated that Georgia is a new swing state. I mean, Donald Trump won this state in 2016 by like a pretty good margin. But in 2018, Brian Kemp barely won. And I think in 2020, it's just going to get even closer. I think Joe Biden has a shot at winning it. I don't think he will, but I think on the Senate level, it's going to be very competitive too. Next up in the state of Iowa, I think this is going to be a tilt Republican state. I think Donald Trump is going to win this state by over 3 points. I think this is going to help Joni Ernst. If Donald Trump were not on the ballot and this were a 2018 race, I do think that Joni Ernst would be beaten. But I think Joni Ernst is going to ride President Trump's coattails, and this is going to help her. Riding President Trump's coattails isn't going to help everywhere, but in Iowa, a state that Donald Trump won by 9.5 points, this will for sure help. And the last tilt Republican state that I have right now is Montana. I just saw a poll that came out of Montana that had Steve Bullock up by 2 points. And for where we are in the race, that this was not a super strong performance by Steve Bullock. If Steve Bullock were up by 5 or more points at this point, I'd probably have this as a tilt Democratic state. But as we get closer to Election Day and people become more and more polarized, I think more people will vote straight ballot. And Trump was up by 11 points. So I just don't see that many people voting for Trump and then a Democratic senator. I could see this on the governor's level. And I mean, in 2018, there were Democrats who voted for John Tester, and he ended up winning re-election. However, in 2020, I think more people would turn out in Montana, and I think a lot of Republicans stayed home in 2018. So that's my justification for that. Next up is the state of Maine. I understand that Susan Collins used to be one of the most popular senators, and that she's been in the Senate since 1996. She's won double digits every time she's been up for election in a state that's typically a Democratic state. So she's positioned herself as a moderate and has been pretty popular even among moderate Democrats. However, after she voted yes for Brett Kavanaugh, that changed everything. And so I just don't see Susan Collins being able to win the seat right now. I definitely want to see more polling out of this state. This is where Donald Trump is not going to help her. She's not going to want to ride Donald Trump's coattails. And she's even said that she's not going to campaign against Joe Biden, which I think is a smart decision. But I mean, this is going to be the race of her life. And I think with just a lot of funding coming in from the National Democrats, that it's going to be hard for Susan Collins to keep this seat. But I still see this race being incredibly close. So lastly is the state of North Carolina. I think this is going to be the closest state overall. Right now I have Donald Trump winning on the presidential level, but Cal Cunningham very narrowly edging out Tom Tillis. I literally think this is going to a recount vote. I think that Donald Trump will be able to outperform Tom Tillis just enough where Cal Cunningham can win. I definitely want to see more polling out of the state. Donald Trump is polling better than Tom Tillis right now. But if this outcome happens, it's going to be a 50-50 tie, and the vice president will break this tie. So right now I have Joe Biden winning, which means that like Kamala Harris or Susan Rice will be able to break the tie, and the Democrats will have majority of the Senate. So right now I'm projecting that the Democrats will win the presidency, the Senate, and the House, which would just be like the Republicans had in 2016 or the Democrats had in 2008 when Barack Obama was first elected. So there you have it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm only 17 away, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.